Today on the show, we're diving into one of the biggest conversations online, the Ezra Olubi story, the viral reactions, the questions around leadership, and what all of this really means for the Nigerian tech ecosystem. Now, joining me today is the journalist who broke the story on Tech Cabal, Jay OnAirTV, here to help us separate fact from noise, and from the HR perspective, someone who understands workplace culture and leadership expectations deeply. Felix Bisong is on his way here. This isn't about sensationalism, it's about accountability, perception, and what we expect from the people who lead the brands that we trust. Let us get right into the conversation. Ganu, thank you so much for joining us this evening. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad. Thank you so much that you said you were going to be here. I wasn't sure what your reaction was going to be because it's a very touchy subject and everybody has been talking about it, and a lot of the revelations have just caught everybody. Everybody's just shocked and surprised. So when you heard this story, what crossed your mind first? And did you know that you were the one that was going to write this story for Tech Cabal? Because Tech Cabal was also dragged into it. Are you guys going to talk about this story? So talk to us about, when the first few hours when this story broke on the internet and when you knew you were the one that was going to be covering this important story.
I think a very good place to start to say is that a lot of people need to understand that just because something is on social media doesn't automatically mean that it becomes a story. So that nuance is often missing, and that's why every time something happens, people are quick to tag certain publications to say, why are you guys not writing about it? Because what is important is for you to be able to look at what is happening and find what is your own angle and what's really, really important, right? So when those tweets started, going viral to a lot of people, and of course we had the same reaction every other person had was, okay, these are damning tweets, but the real, and I think which is the most important part of all of that was the allegations that there was workplace misconduct, and because that's something you can easily tie to a broader ecosystem problem, which is that if that is happening, if those allegations were true, it raises a lot of question about the behavior of the person in question, raises a lot of question about corporate governance, misconduct, and all of that. And that was the perspective that we look at it from, that this is a damning allegation, and as a publication, we have that responsibility to really look at it. And then we reached out to the company for comments, and then we got to comment that, okay, this was the action they were going to take. And so I didn't even know I was going to write story. All of the newsroom, we basically spent all night trying to figure out the story itself, how to think about it, because again, it's very sensitive, like you rightly said. And what that means is that you want to bring a lot of nuance to it, considering the fact that you're dealing with an audience that people are very emotionally charged, and people are coming up with their own theories, and it's our own job to help them understand what the real issue is and what the broader context is, and that's what we did with our story.
All right, we're in conversation with Jay OnAirTV, senior editor at Tech Cabal. We're having a conversation about the Paystack CTO, chief technology officer, that was accused of a number of allegations, by somebody that, considered a friend. So a lot of things were said, and I know that the Tech Cabal perspective is what's, about the work aspect, So I want us to be able to separate the reactions from the facts, or from the hearsay or the gist from what is actually factual. So from your story, you covered what are actually the facts. So tell us what are facts and what people should not get wrong in this particular story. Sorry for the breaking transmission. I want to just let you know that Jay On Air is now taking collaborations and partnerships. In case you're a brand out there, you want to sponsor, you want to partner with us, all you need to do is send us an email to jayonairbusiness@gmail.com. You get your ads on radio and of course on YouTube as well. We have a lot of important people, opinion leaders, celebrities, entertainers join us on this show, and this is such a great platform, to showcase what you're doing with the rest of the world. So why don't you send us that email today, jayonairbusiness@gmail.com. Let's get right back into the conversation.
So what we lean on to, which was what our story was about, was the allegation that there was workplace misconduct, and that this person was accused of having relations with the subordinates, which itself is a serious corporate governance issue, because again, it puts to question the credibility of the person, puts to question even their judgment on how they're managing people, right? And that for us is the most important part of those allegations, because again, if you look at some of the other tweets, they were made years before even the company was founded, right? They speak a lot to the person's character. We have to admit that. But that is not just the story itself. The story is that, can you draw a straight line from this thought to the person's character and how the person has been managing people who have been working directly under him, right? So if you cannot establish that link, your best at just reaction what other people are saying. So the nuance here is there is a serious allegation that has a lot of consequences, right? And that is the allegation of workplace misconduct, because again, the ecosystem, for instance, has been under a lot of scrutiny for similar allegations like that. Just last month, reported about if a CEO in Kenya that got fined by the courts because of sexual harassment allegations, right? So those are serious issues. Because they mean a lot. Look at it from a trust angle. Again, you're operating in a market that has low trust, which is that everything you do is going to be scrutinized, and then you have a duty towards all of the important stakeholders. Your investors, your customers, and even to the public. Because what you do doesn't just rub off on you as a company or as the individuals involved, but it rubs off on the entire ecosystem. And that is like the nuance that I think a lot of people seem to be missing in that conversation. And that's what we try to do with our story, and something we always continue to emphasize on.
All right, interesting. Now, before publishing, what facts did you have to verify that you feel most people discussing the story still don't truly understand? Because yes, somebody tweeted, but for a publication to carry a story, there have to be some facts that have to be verified. I know that you got statements from Paystack. I don't know if you got statements from him. I don't know if you also got statements from Stripe, because I know that Paystack is closely linked to Stripe. So what was the process of, fact finding in this particular story?
Okay, so we reached out to all of the parties involved, the company, Paystack, Stripe, and also the Ezra himself, right? And we're able to get comment from, Paystack that, certified what eventually we lead our story with, that he has been suspended. So the angle that we led with was there is a serious allegation of workplace misconduct. Yeah. This person's tweets from 11, 12 years ago, they exist. But the question is, again, like I rightly said, can you draw a straight line from that to this person's character? Because what matters to us as a publication is that allegation that there's a workplace misconduct means a lot in the broader context for the entire ecosystem. And that's something that a lot of people need to pay attention to. All right? Because again, as the ecosystem matures, we're going to see more cases of intense scrutiny of that regard, because it's going to raise a lot of questions about corporate governance if that is a thing. Because again, you now have to start asking or even reviewing all of the choices this person has made in that position. That has there ever been a time this person had to favor the person that he was allegedly involved with? Is this even a company-wide culture, right? It also raises a lot of questions even about the kind of environment in which people are operating. That if this was a thing, this is true, and people are operating in that, what kind of company are you running in that regard, right? What kind of behavior do you think your employees will have, right? Because there are expectations of senior people at companies that have gone to that level. Because again, we're talking about some of the biggest companies out of the country. Then there are expectations. People know there's a lot more that is at stake, right? And so that's really is like the nuance that we try to bring into the story itself. And that's why we reached out to everybody that was involved to really get the facts right, to be sure that, yes, beyond the conversations people are having on Twitter, beyond what people are saying, what really is the story here, what is consequential here, and that's what we lead on to.
In your experience, is it surprising that we've not heard from the person that this story is anchored on? I mean, you've heard from the parent company, but I know you've covered similar stories like this in the past, especially in the tech space. So is it surprising that we've not heard a statement from Ezra, that Ezra has not come out to tweet something or deny allegations or say all of this is under investigation? Do you think that it's surprising that he has not said anything in your experience?
So just to clarify, we didn't hear from the parent company Stripe. We only had from Paystack. Yeah. It's not exactly surprising, because again, when these things happen, we also need to look at it from sort of the emotional thought that it gives on the individual itself. Because whether the allegations are true or not, there's just something that it does to you that you're not in the news, and not for the good reasons, right? And so it's not exactly surprising that we've not come out to comment, and that's why companies in this regard will be the ones to make the statement to say, okay, an investigation is ongoing, and even investigation is ongoing, just advisable not to say anything, because again, maybe what you said could be can be used against you in any form, or even be misconstrued by the audience, because again, people are emotionally charged, and people have different incentives to want to have certain theories about it, right? So you don't want to put yourself in a place where it's just hard, and that's why it's just your company is better positioned to take a stand, because the company is the most critical stakeholder here. That holds that duty to the public and to every other stakeholder to say this is what is happening and this is the position we've taken on it.
Now, this is a tech company, and this is not the first time we're seeing a tech founder or somebody in the tech space being accused of something like this. So my thing is that a lot of people would think that tech companies are newer. We've heard things, when you hear things about things like this from older companies, people would assume that now that you have younger people who are looking for change, who want better, we should not be hearing things like this in newer spaces, like the tech spaces. Why do you think there's a rise in a lot of these sexual allegations against people in this tech space? Do you think there's something that is being done wrong generally in the ecosystem, or it's just human nature for things like this to happen, whether new or old?
So I'll actually lean on to the argument that it's human nature, because again, these companies are run by human beings and not robots, which is that the same behavior that you find in traditional industries, you most likely find it with, even in more new age industries. Again, it's just, these things are just human behavior, right? But again, what it actually brings to mind, and which is, I also think that the most important thing is that this increased scrutiny, again, brings to question the need for, even as an ecosystem, for us to have like serious conversations around, expectations on behavior. To have serious conversations about work culture, conversations about corporate governance, more importantly, because again, the era of move fast and break things, the era of you can just do things because you're a small company, nobody really cares so much about you. But again, when you start to mature, and then you now have critical stakeholders, you now have a lot of people who are invested in you in one way or the other, whether they're your investors or they're your customers, then there's going to be like a lot of attention to what you do. And then you now need to put structures in place, because again, we've seen this happen like over the last 5 years or so, like where different allegations of such have come up, and every time it happens, it's a reminder to us as an ecosystem to have those serious conversations and to remind ourselves that you just cannot get away with anything, which is, you're now mature companies, you're going to face more scrutiny, more people are going to pay attention to it, because you have social responsibility now. Your public trust could be at stake, your reputation could be on the line, and then you need to start looking at yourself internally and saying, what do we need to put in place from a structure standpoint, from a governance standpoint, to ensure that the appropriate behavior is allowed.
Why do Nigerians respond so passionately to stories involving fintech? What do you think has happened over the last couple of years? Because this is not the first time Tech Cabal is being dragged to say, you must cover this story, you must say something. You guys have been involved in things like this in the past. Now, is it trust, is it money, is it expectations, or is it just general culture? Why do you think Nigerians are so passionate about, fintech stories now?
It's a combination of two things, but I think more importantly is trust, which is that what fintechs have been able to do is to prove to people that banking can work beyond the brick and mortar. Right? And so when you've earned people's trust, what it means is they are invested in your success in a way. They want to see you succeed. And everything that happens to you, they care about it, because they can come up with a lot of theories. Again, if you put money somewhere and the owners of the company, the people leading the company, are involved in workplace misconduct, some of the questions you start asking yourself is that, is my money safe, and all of that. So that is on one part. And also the fact that the appeal, and this is not even just fintechs, the ecosystem itself, is that it's been led by younger people who are more progressive, who are more liberal. So there's that expectation that these things should not be a thing, like you rightly said, right? There's just that expectation from people that you guys, you can do better, right? The reason why people don't like the traditional guys is because, in a way, this behavior is more prevalent there. Then people should not be replicating it. But again, it's human nature, and that's why processes are in place. That's why structure has to be put in place to ensure that it doesn't happen, and that when it happens, the right actions are taken against those people. So that's the one part, and just the fact that people care about the tech ecosystem, frankly, right? Because it affects their everyday life. People interact with these companies in one way or the other. They use these companies in one way or the other. So they are going to care about what is happening inside those companies. They are going to care about the behavior of people leading those companies. Because trust is the most important currency. Yes, particularly like if you're a public-facing company, and more importantly, you're one that you're a fintech and you're dealing with people's money. They need to trust you, and if you do something that puts that trust or your credibility at stake, you will not be surprised that you're getting this kind of reaction.
Yeah. When we saw the statement that was released by Paystack, courtesy from your platform, Tech About, saying that he has been suspended pending allegations, a lot of people were reacting and saying that he's a co-founder, even though he's the CTO. It is basically they are just telling him to work from home. Nothing is really happening there. So in your experience, even though somebody is a co-founder, so that people, you'll be surprised what people don't know, and that is why we have conversations like this. Somebody is a co-founder. Can they be suspended in a company that they co-founded? That's number one. And number two, I'm sure you saw some of those reactions. People saying that it's Elijah, he's just going to work from home. After 1 month, they'll call him back. Nothing is going to happen. What do you say to that?
So one is the first question. Yes, a co-founder of a company can be suspended. And that's because, again, when a company matures to the point where you have investors, you have a board. And the board can take action on the actions of the people at the management level, which is the board can suspend. It's actually the board that even suspend people, right? The board has all the ultimate power. So people get suspended even from their own companies. People get even kicked out. People get asked to even resign from the position that they hold. So it happens. And so those theories don't necessarily fly. And second of all, I don't think it's healthy that we're already making these conclusions, because again, this investigation in question just started, right? People should follow closely. We also, as the media, also have a responsibility to follow closely with the company, to monitor what's happening and be able to report what we know and what's happening and all of that. But I think it's too premature for people to conclude that it's going to be business as usual, because again, you need to understand the fact that the company in question is now part of a global company, which is it's not going to be just another thing, right? The reason why even the action itself was taken is because it is a serious company. Like once we're talking about a mature company and not some early stage company that maybe just still trying to figure it out. But like, you are a serious company, you're a mature company, you have people who are invested in you, which is they would make sure that they put everything in place to ensure that your governance is airtight and certain behavior is just not accepted, right? So it is too premature for people to conclude that the investigation is just business. I get the cynicism. We're all Nigerians, and we see these things happen a lot. But it is too early to just come to the conclusion that again, the media is there to do the job of following through that process and seeing what the eventual conclusion is. But it's just too early to conclude. Yeah.
All right. So, did you anticipate the scale of the backlash or the direction the conversation took after your story came out? Tech About did not break the story. People saw this happening in real time, on Twitter, on X, and then they now said, for us to actually know what is fact and what is fable, Tech About has to cover the story. So what were the reactions that you got? And were you surprised? Was it backlash? Was it praise? What was the reaction that you got?
I think for every sensitive story like that, you get a mix of all of that. You get people who praise you for writing the story. You get people who drag you because maybe you don't lean with the angle that they think you should lean with, or maybe they think the story is not written the way they expected it to be written. These things often happen. But I think what is very important for us is that ensuring that the job has been done, and the job is to bring the story to life. And not just bring it to life with all of the nuance that it requires, bring it to life with all the context that is required. Because our responsibility in this case is to help the readers and the audience and the everyday people understand what is really at stake here. Because that's what seems to be missing in that entire conversation. People don't understand what is at stake. People don't understand what the broader picture is. And that's what we've been able to do with our story. And that's what even subsequent, reporting on this matter would also help to understand. Like, this is the broader context. This is what this means, and this is why it matters. Because if that is not clear to people, they would lean on to cliches. They would lean on to whatever preconceived notions that they already have. Human beings are human beings, and this is social media. People say all kinds of things, right? So the reactions are just being the usual mix that you get. People would praise you, people would drag you, people would even say they want more and all of that. Some people will be cynical, some people will come up with their own theories, some of which like I rightly said, are even premature and all that. But it's just the usual business as usual. And I think any publication that covers sensitive stories will probably be used to it at this point.
Are you used to it as a writer?
Trust me. Trust me. I've seen a lot.
What are some key things that you wrote in this story that you think people are missing and people are not talking enough about? Because I mean, I read through the story. There are a lot of key things, even things that people are not necessarily emphasizing on social media. But once people have the patience enough to read through the entire article, they will see that, oh, there's a lot more in this story. So what are some key things that you know that people might miss from your publication about this entire situation?
I think the number one thing is that this raises a lot of questions about corporate governance and just like expectations from, what senior leaders and, top people in tech companies should be doing. That is the nuance that I think has been missing from all of the conversation. Like a lot of people have just not seen that this is the corporate governance issue. All right. The reason why it's a corporate governance issue is because it is about a mature company, right? It is about powerful people, you can put it that way, right? It's about a company that a lot of people are deeply invested in the success, a company that has, a great reputation, right? So when these kind of things happen, the conversation really is, what does this signal to the broader ecosystem, right? What does this signal to outside of the ecosystem? Because again, we're talking about the company that has reputation, a global reputation, right? So when these kind of things happen, some of the questions that people outside of the ecosystem would ask is, why is this happening in this ecosystem, right? What does this signal? What does this mean? Does this continue a trend, right? Does this mean that companies here don't take their corporate governance seriously and whatnot? Is it that companies here need to start rethinking how they think about, corporate governance and, workplace, conduct and all of that? Does it even raise question about even leadership and management internally itself? Because like, if certain behaviors have been allowed to maybe fester for a long time, you just asking that how did it even happen in the first place, and how did they allow you to go unnoticed, right? Which is, were there not people who knew about this? Why did nobody speak up? What kind of, work culture are you even creating for people and all of that? So those are like the very, very important parts, very, very important questions that, the incident itself raised. And I think that is what the conversation should really be about. That we've seen this thing happen. It's not the first time. We've seen it happen like, at a bunch of other companies. Then we need to start asking ourselves, is it time to have like a broader conversation about just, workplace, conduct? Is it time we have that conversation about how we take corporate governance seriously? Is it time we start asking companies to be more responsible? Because when you hit maturity, the excuse that you are small or you don't need to put structures in place are no longer tenable at that point in time, because now you have more people that are invested in you. You have more people who care about the things that you do. And then it means that you need to start asking yourself internally those critical questions: that what are those gaps that exist that has allowed this to happen, right? How do we close those gaps, right? How do we ensure that this doesn't happen again? And how do we ensure that the reputational damage and the institutional risk that this thing poses, to the broader ecosystem, what sort of, conversation needs to be held at the broader ecosystem level, at the stakeholder level, to say, yes, this is what you need to start paying attention to? Is it a point where even investors get even more deeply involved in just ensure that structures are now in place? And even that, even if you're still an early stage startup, doesn't matter, but you start thinking about putting those structures in place and start caring about being responsible and governance, because it's not just about you anymore or the individuals involved. It's about the broader ecosystem. So those are like the very important things that the story touched on. I think that people should be talking about. I
mean, one thing that people said, people are saying that, this is going to really affect Paystack, numbers are going to drop, stock and all of that. And an argument people had is that, again, cynicism, this is Nigeria, nothing is going to happen to the company itself. People were arguing that if this had happened in maybe America, for example, that the company's numbers will definitely drop, that people will feel, the company itself will know that something has gone wrong. We've actually seen situations like that where a CEO abroad is accused of something and
the stock price drop.
Exactly, stock prices drop. But people say that, Nigeria is still pretty new, that stuff like that don't really happen here. In your experience, is this true?
So, like you said, it's a cynical argument to make, to be honest. And also let's put in mind that when we use the examples of maybe companies from Silicon Valley and all of that, these are publicly listed companies in most cases. So the market would naturally react to that kind of news. But the companies in question yet are not listed, right? What you have at best is just institutional risk from a public trust standpoint, which is like people who trust you start rethinking the whole thing. And that is why when things like this happen, what the companies typically do is to take like a strong stance that we do not condone this kind of behavior. We're going to investigate it and all of that, because that's the only way you prove to all of your stakeholders, your investors, to your customers, and just even members of the public that this is not the kind of behavior that you accept, right? Because you know that your credibility is at stake. You know that that public trust that you've earned over the years of, offering services and, providing services to people, that is at stake now, right? And you want to prove to those stakeholders and the people that, yes, we are a serious company and you should continue to trust us. So the public image for a while would take a dent, which is very understandable, because again, people would ask a lot of questions as to why that has even happened in the first place. But I think the whole comparison, people just need to start thinking about it from a nuanced standpoint, which is you cannot compare like how the market would react to like publicly listed companies, Silicon Valley, to here when the companies in question are not even publicly listed, and and also the fact that the company has also taken like a very strong stance on what has happened, and they would continue to make effort to ensure that they put structures in place and all of that. So once that assurance exists, in a way, you just send like another signal to all of the, people involved, all the stakeholders, and say, okay, we are serious people, and we're going to ensure that this doesn't happen again, and all of that.
I think our bodies that overlook companies like this that are also supposed to investigate situations like this, or is it just going to be something that is handled internally?
So it's an internal corporate governance issue. So if there was maybe any form of violence, for instance, involved, maybe becomes a matter of the police. Maybe if somebody has sued, for instance, then it becomes a matter of the courts. But so far, it's still it's a governance issue. So like that is why the company's board will be the ones to like take the front side of all of everything that's going to happen around it. Like okay, we're going to take certain steps. We're going to investigate. We're going to come up. This is going to be the outcome of our investigation. These are the next steps, and blah blah blah. But it's an internal governance issue. So the company's board and its leadership are the ones who have to handle it.
Well, hoping that our HR expert joins us soon. What lessons should younger founders and tech talents take away from this situation? So the younger founders, because we have a lot of young founders now, everybody has a startup these days.
Yeah.
But also tech talents, what can they take away from this situation? Especially because when people think about this person, this is a very intelligent person that accomplished so much and is still accomplishing so much. But all of that public image can be destroyed, especially coming from somebody who has gotten recognition from the federal government, has gotten a medal from the federal government, has a lot of recognition, in Nigeria, outside of Nigeria, globally. But this is something that can, destroy a lot of the things that, a lot of the public image, really. So what lesson should tech founders and tech talents get from this entire situation so far?
So a couple of things. One is that we all need to learn to be more responsible. And by that I mean that the excuse that because I made this, I'm that, and all of that, so you just need to be conscious enough that certain things are just not acceptable, right? Certain behavior is just not acceptable, right? Which is whichever stage that you are in your startup or you're trying to build, even right from the state of ideation. If your goal is to grow into a more mature company, you need to start thinking about corporate governance. You need to start thinking about structures that you need to put in place to ensure that the right set of conduct is encouraged, right? You need to start thinking about public trust and your social responsibility, really, because again, there's a lot at stake for you, probably more than you've imagined, right? And more people need to start thinking about their actions from a broader ecosystem impact standpoint, which is that it doesn't just rub off on you alone, it also rubs off on the broader ecosystem. So as you're building, as you're scaling, and every other thing that you're doing, you need to start asking yourself, just very important questions that am I putting structures in place? Am I thinking about governance appropriately? Are we creating the right work culture for people? And if situations like that happen, what actions are we taking? What public stance are we taking, right? So people just need to learn to be more responsible. People need to take governance more seriously and just understand that, public trust is not something to be toyed with.
All right. While you were talking, our HR executive from Gen Z HR walked into the studio, Felix Bisong. Thank you so much for coming. I would have given you some time to breathe, but, we're already in the heat of the conversation. So we're just going to go right in. From an HR and workplace culture lens, how much weight should be placed on a founder or a CEO's personal behavior, especially when it becomes public? Because people often say it's their personal lives, and so much was raised. Apart from the allegations of, Ezra in this case, having relations with subordinates, that allegation, more than that, there were so much more that were raised. And let's not forget that past tweets from 11, 10, 12 years ago. So people are asking, should that even matter at all?
Absolutely, it should matter. It should absolutely matter, right? But before I go into that, I think that the workplace is supposed to be employees are supposed to be protected a whole lot, right? Employees are meant to be protected by employers and also by laws and policies, governance, literally, right? So everybody, no matter how big you are, there's no one above the law in the workplace, right? So everybody's subjected to following the law. Even the investors and also your board of directors are meant to follow the law. So there is no one above the law, absolutely no one. So everybody, whether you are CEO, whether you're COO, whether you're CTO, you're meant to follow the law, and if you obviously go against the law obviously will bring you back, to your toes, right? So yes, should emphasis be placed on the individual right now? Yeah. Absolutely. Because again, there's just a lot that have been happening on the ground, right? There's just a lot that have been happening, and this also shows that I don't want to go deep into saying there weren't policies, put in place for maybe anti-harassment policies, in the office. I wouldn't want to say that because I have no idea about that, right? But I'd say perhaps the company wants to look into making the policy a whole lot stringent, make it a whole lot visible to employees so that they can see and ensure that, hey, I have something that protects me here, and if I feel some type of way, I can absolutely do something. I would think after creating an anti-harassment policy, one would want to. I mean, most people did not read, by the way. So let's not even let's not even leave that fact. You send policies to employees, they don't read it, and it's only when they flout the policies that they come. Oh, I did that. Yes. I think that company want to do a whole lot of perhaps I would say town hall to intimate employees on the policy awareness, perhaps, right? So people can understand exactly what it's in the policy. Also, I think this kind of case, I don't know, it may have been happening in the past. I mean, it has happened in different organizations, right? So there needs to be some sort of whistleblowing in organizations, right, where people can easily blow whistles. Hey, I mean, it has to be anonymous, by the way, so people don't feel like they're going to be targeted, right, or they're going to be retaliated. So there should be whistleblowing policies in organizations where if people see things like this, they should be able to talk about it and eventually report it anonymously. So management can obviously work around this appropriately. Just my thoughts here.
All right, is there a clear line between personal brand, because everybody talks about I'm this, but I have a personal brand now, and so people work in companies but go for public speaking events because they have a personal brand? Is there a clear line between personal brand and professional responsibility when someone leads $1 billion company?
No, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. There's just so much nuance around that, right? There's just so much nuance around that. If you lead a multi-billion-dollar company, obviously, we don't want to say your personality should revolve around the company. Obviously, you have a life that you need to live as well. But as much as you have a life, you need to live a responsible life, right? A very responsible life, because, of course, this is Paystack we're talking about here. Paystack manages or powers a lot of businesses in Nigeria. A lot of small, even my business, Paystack powers my business. So I am looking up to the company's policies. I'm looking at the company's management. I'm looking at the company's management. Literally, if anything probably happens, if there was a theft, let's say there was a theft around here, I probably would have taken out my money from whatever. I mean, I would have maybe closed my account on Paystack, right? Yeah. But that means it connects. Your personal life does connect with your professional life. Again, we have gone back. People have gone back to 2011 to pick out tweets. That means it does connect, right? It really does connect, and everybody needs to be careful and live a lot more responsible lifestyle. Just so, because you're leading. You may not know. People are watching. People are watching as a leader. You, even as an individual, everybody at all. People are watching you. You may feel like, oh, I'm just me. I may feel like I'm just Felix, right? And maybe just do my thing, but people are watching. People are absolutely watching you, and you need to, as a leader, ensure that you do not lose focus or lose sight of the most important thing, which is your business, regardless of the fact that you have a personal life to live. All
right, I want to ask both of you: should past tweets matter? because people definitely went back to get Ezra's past tweets,
Yeah.
but also got Maki, the person that accused him of a lot of these things, are past tweets as well. We saw past tweets from Whiskey. People went to get past tweets from Banky W. It has become an entire thing. I'm not gonna be honest. I went to search different things on my history. Did I tweet anything I wasn't supposed to tweet? And nobody's checking for me, but everybody was checking out, and people were getting people's past tweets, and
Yeah.
we were seeing a lot of pretty interesting revelations from people's past tweets. So should that matter? People can say that it's 10 years, it's 12 years, people can evolve, people can change. I think there was a time Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars.
Yeah.
A past tweet of his came to
light, and that was
light,
he couldn't
and that was
host
the end of that. He couldn't host the Oscars, even though he said he didn't pay him, but we know that it will hurt anybody. So does that even matter at all when it comes to past tweets?
Let me get here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because I hire people a lot, because I'm HR, and when I'm hiring, I'm also doing background checks, right? They matter. They matter a whole lot.
Even if it's 10, 12 years ago?
10, 12 years. I don't want to excuse this. I don't want to excuse it, right? But it does matter, right? Your past tweets, no, maybe not. Maybe out of. I wouldn't want to give a percentage to it really, but it does matter, right? Because for me, for instance, when I'm hiring majorly on skill and character. I want to be sure that I'm hiring somebody who is, because in the past we've seen people who have made tweets about. I don't know if I'm able to say tribalism. People have made tweets about they made tribal remarks online and everything. Imagine me going to hire somebody who is tribal, who makes tribal remarks all the time on online. Into a business, and the person comes in. That continues. That line continues, right? So, is there a relationship between that and now? Perhaps there is, right? And from my angle as a HR professional, I would absolutely be very careful, not to hire somebody who's got something like that. Because I will do my background checks, and if I do my background checks and I see something like that there, I will have a little bit of bias around that there. Really, maybe bias. Yeah.
So let me just add to it. So one thing you said that I think is super important is the character, right? Those past tweets, those past opinions speak to the person's character, right? And one of the things that I previously said in the course of this conversation was that if you can draw a straight line from those opinions and the person's, current character, because it will raise a lot of questions, right? Which is like, if this person said this some 10 years ago, is it still a reflection of who they are at the moment? Because you cannot be too sure if they still hold similar opinions, right? And that is why it would matter, especially when you are consequential, especially when you're leading a very important company, right? Because people will ask that, as this behavior continued, has this in any way trickled down to how this person is dealing, relating with employees, how this person is dealing with subordinates, and even just overall the work culture in the company? Because if you know that kind of thing about the person who is leading you, you would feel you feel one kind of way about it, because you start asking questions like, am I safe here? What kind of person is this? And because it speaks to the person's character, and that is why they would always matter.
As an HR professional, what can companies do better here? Because I think that when it comes to people having opportunities or feeling free to report somebody that is higher up than them, to say this person sexually harassed me, this person is doing this, person is doing that, do we have enough systems in all the companies, but especially in startups? Because we have a lot of startups now, we have a lot of tech companies. Do these companies, at least from your experience, have the necessary
frameworks,
exactly, to protect the people that work there?
I don't have data to back this up, right? So I will not speak empirically, but from experience, a lot of startups do not. Obviously I can speak from empirically. Startup founders in Nigeria, they don't like hiring HR professionals for their businesses. They feel like you're going to limit them. They feel like you're going to limit their exploits.
Wait, are you saying that there are companies that actually work without human resource professionals?
There are a lot of them in Nigeria. Yes. They don't want to hire HR professionals because they feel like, HR is going to come and limit me. HR will maybe take my money and everything. HR is a cost center, by the way. We spend money. We spend money on employees. Money to train employees and everything, right? But more importantly, HRs are they're like culture guardians, right? We guard the culture in the organizations, right? So we build the culture and we guard the culture. That is why it's important for every organization, whether small, big, small. If you're small, you don't have so much money to get an in-house HR, please get a consultant, that will help you to manage your people for you and manage that culture, if a startup, obviously, you don't need to hire a HR of like you're paying ₦1 million. You could get a HR that can pay some, of course, an amount of money that obviously will be able, that's commensurate to, that your startup can afford, right? When you get HR in your business, I think I've established a fact right now. When you get HR in your business, what happens then is that HR begins to build policies, right? And that I think for me, when I get a client, what I do with them is ask them questions. Oh, do you have policies in your business, in your organization? If they don't have, I begin to build policies from scratch. What I'm building first, is anti-harassment policies, because I've experienced harassment in workplaces before, and I do not want to work in a place where people are harassed out as well, right? So that came up from PTSD. So I create policies, anti-harassment policies. We implement that. We do a town hall and ensure that everybody in the organization reads these policies and signs that they understand, they've read and understood this policy. Once you're done, everybody. When I say everybody, I mean everybody from top to bottom. There's no bottom here, literally, but here what I mean. Yeah. So everybody needs to affirm or sign that they've read and understood that policy, so that when something comes up much later and you want to say, oh, you didn't know about the policy, we bring it back for you.
A key argument there is that at the end of the day, the HR works for the company, so you can only HR to the other staff. You cannot HR to the general managers and CTOs and this like that. You hear arguments like that.
Yes, for me, I've been opportune to work in places that that HRs are not particularly stifled, or maybe shut up. Yes, and maybe because of how I've tried a whole lot in my career to ensure that I do not work in toxic places. If I go to a toxic place today and if I go to a place today I see it's toxic, I'm out of there the next day. Because I don't want to be called into that situation. I don't want to be there. Yes, there are some companies that and before I even go ahead to share this, I think that's important. It's important for us to demystify HRs. There are HRs who are properly taught, right? And then there are HRs who, I'm sorry, but there are some guys who just transition from customer support. If you go online today, you see a lot of people that they want to transition from customer support to HR. You see people who want to transition from what do you call it again, social media management to HR. Because they feel like HR is like a low-hanging fruit, right? So there are a lot of HRs. Excuse my French. There are a lot of quack HRs, around, and a lot of people are looking for those guys because they feel like they are not expensive enough. They are not. They can pay them. So again, it's important for you to know that there are good HRs and great, not by character, by the way, by professional HR guys, and then there are the other guys out there who are always going to lay, or maybe accept or agree everything that the founder says, and then there are HR guys there who know their job, who are telling you this is what's supposed to be. Of course, you're paying me salary, but you're paying me because you're paying me for my experiences and also for the work I'm coming to do for you here, not because you want me to come and worship you or anything, right? So there are important things. Just people need to understand that yes, HRs work for the business. We work to protect the interests of the business and also the interests of the employees. Both of it. There's no 70-30 or 40-60. It's a 50-50 thing, right? We're protecting the business and protecting you as well as an employee. That's what typically HR should be doing, not the one-sided way.
All right, so we have to wrap up the conversation, and I already asked Gani what key takeaways, because he published the story we talk about, and so we wanted him to highlight certain things that people are missing, because of course emotions are high, people are saying so many things that are true, things that are false, things that are verified, things that are not verified. So many things are being said. So I already asked him his key takeaway from the publication. I'm going to ask you just short. What is something in this entire situation with Ezra and Paystack that people are missing, that people should pay serious attention to? Is there something you think that it's not being talked about, or there's a certain misinformation that people are carrying about this story, and just generally really?
Yeah, policies. I would say policies, right? People are particular about the character, the individual person here. They're not talking about the organizational policies. We don't know what the policies are, but I think that if the policies are strong enough, there wouldn't be a CEO having an affair with with an employee of the business, right? Because there's obviously power imbalance there, right? There's absolute power imbalance there. There needs to be not necessarily an overhaul, but maybe a review of the policy, to ensure that people need to talk about policies, and it's a countrywide thing right now. The organizations who do not have these policies also in the organization, so there needs to be not because you want to stifle employees or say, oh, there shouldn't be relationships in the office. Where I used to work, we tell people, oh yes, you can have relationships with your how do I call this now?
Peers.
Your peers. You can't have relationship with the management team, like with the management team, not because we don't want you to do that, but because there's absolute power imbalance there, and something may happen there, and because we have stated this clearly, it's in the policy. Yes, everybody knows what they are supposed to do, and everybody's guided as well. So I think that we need to understand, we need to speak a lot more about policies in our organizations, especially those startups that we are working with, just so that we are employees are a lot safer, when working with startups in particular. Yes.
All right, to wrap this up, I want us to get our final words in about this entire situation. Because like I said, this was not supposed to be an episode about sensationalism. I was already getting some messages. Ask them, what the cat. I'm like, that is not
What the cat?
no, we're not doing that here. So what would be your final word here? And is Tech About going to keep updating us about, more on this particular story?
Yeah, that's for sure. We are going to stay on the story and continue to follow the investigation and see what the outcome is. I think my final take here would be that this is just another reminder again for the larger ecosystem that we need to have more serious conversations about, workplace conduct, and more importantly, governance, which is what he has, established a lot. Which is we need to ask ourselves this critical question: that why is this a thing? Why has this continued as a trend? And what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do right as an ecosystem?
All right, Felix, what about you?
For me, I think we need to know that HR is not the problem. HR is not your enemy also. Yeah. HR is there to protect you, and like you mentioned, governance is super important in organizations. If there are no governance, everybody's going to go wild, people are going to go wild really. So there needs to be proper governance frameworks in startups. If you're a startup and yes, if you're like, oh, you don't have need for HR, at the very least, yeah, try to get policies stated or policies developed for your business. That will help you a whole lot to avoid this whole debacle really. So you are safe, in that aspect, right? So really, really important for me. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much to Gani Olamontade from Tech Cabal, and of course to Felix Bisong of Gen Z HR. Are there any projects that you guys have that we should be looking forward to?
Just follow Tech Cabal everywhere. Frankly,
a very passionate workout.
You see a lot.
Any projects?
Oh yes, for me we are having the Career Brunch 2.0, 29th November 2025. So at Miva Open University, it's a career, tech and lifestyle event. You should come for it. It's an event where we are bringing young professionals together to come listen to older folks talk about how they have been able to navigate their careers, from ground zero to obviously the top, right? So come there. We are giving out free laptops. We are giving you a lot of food. We are.
So I wanted to ask, that brunch, is it real brunch?
It's real brunch.
Or is it intellectual brunch?
No, real brunch. So we are giving you food. We are having. It's not your regular event, so it's not like this serious event. No, we are giving you food. We are playing games. We are also bringing recruiters. About 20 recruiters there who have jobs to obviously to hire for. You should come for it. Check out Gen Z HR, everywhere really. Yeah, everywhere. And you see the links to register, and also register to get a laptop if you like to get one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think I always wrap up with J-Stick, and I think that what I would say here is at the end of the day, everybody has to be careful. Whether you work in the tech space or you don't work in the tech space, you have to be careful about your digital footprint. There are a lot of things that people are just saying, unverified stories. You just want to insult somebody you never met that you don't know. This can in the long run affect the work that you are doing, so everybody has to be very, very careful, and companies definitely have a responsibility to ensure that employees are very, very protected. Everybody here has a role to play, and this is a story that we'll definitely be following very closely. Thank you so much for joining us today on Jay OnAir. We have this Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on 88.5 FM at 6 p.m. This episode will be live on YouTube tomorrow at 6 p.m. as well. So in case you want to see what Ganyu and Felix look like, you want to revisit a lot of the important points we spoke about, please subscribe to Jay on Air TV. And of course, you see the video there tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.